Hi, folks. My name is Dakota Cohen, and today we're going to be interviewing Jenn MacAusland from Soul Monkey Yoga and Wellness out of Calgary, Alberta. Jenn, I've been doing a series of interviews with experts in the health and wellness fields across Alberta, trying to better understand what the most recent science and experience is in relation to optimal human health and wellness. And I just wanted to get your perspective on that today. So thanks for joining us. Why don't you start off by just telling us a bit about your background and about a bit of your expertise?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone. I have kind of a varied background, kind of a little bit different than most people who work in the field. I come from child and youth care and social work originally, which I feel like it kind of gives me an edge as opposed to some other people in regards to helping to assess and get to the root issue with health issues. So with my counseling background and kind of having that as a foundation, I branched off from the response team that I was working for and dove into yoga and teacher training and facilitating all that kind of stuff on that level with me. And then I also continued to expand into my nutrition and wellness, taking things like iridology, which is a study of the eyes and how our eyes can give us lots of clues or answers to things that are going on with us.
Mm-hmm.
Study of kinesiology, foundational work there in regards to muscle testing and using the tools that our body has energy-wise to help facilitate I guess answers to the questions whether or not we are giving or feeding our bodies the appropriate things. And then just having a background in nutrition and understanding the fundamentals of nutrition and how that works. And then bringing it all together. And interesting enough, we hold our bodies in ways that give clues as to what's happening. So whether it be how your initial frame is standing and your posture, your shoulders rolling forward, where you're holding maybe excess stress or weight or etc., will depict a lot for me as to what's happening internally in the body. So it's more than, so it's more than just, oh, you need to take this vitamin and good luck, see you later kind of thing. So we work lots on how everything is everything in our lives. And so whether it's, nutrition, it's not really just about nutrition. It's also about, what's happening in your personal life, what's happening in your emotional and spiritual life, what's happening in your financial life, and bringing all of those tools together under an umbrella, almost like I like to use the sacred tree in that sense, is that we're all rooted to the earth. So using the energy of the earth and understanding the mechanisms and the nutrients that the earth gives us, and flowers and the herbs and all of that all those fun things to kind of come to a conclusion as to living our best life, right? So that's it's difficult to how do you explain what you do? It's kind of hard to explain it, and that's the best way I know how.
Well, that's very holistic, and so what? First of all, what got you interested in health and wellness?
So I always was interested in health and wellness. Even as a kid, playing sports and growing up, I was really lucky to grow up in a home that facilitated good health, and everything was homemade. I was lucky in that way. My mom made homemade breads and everything. I didn't try bought bread until I was in my teens, and I was completely horrified by what so I was a little sheltered in that sense. Never drank pop or did any of those things. I was really, really into athletics. And so I think that having that influence from a lot of really great athletes and coaches and my parents and friends and families, things like that in my life, that kind of helped lay the foundation for where I eventually came back to my roots. And I did branch off and love children and youth and families, and so worked with them at that capacity in all different levels, from hospitals to group homes to response team here in Calgary and those kinds of things. But just eventually got to a point where I felt this calling to get back to, helping people on a different level as opposed to counseling. And so eventually just started diving more into nutrition and yoga and wellness and energy work and those kinds of things. So that's kind of, I came back home.
Yeah.
Is the best way to say it.
Awesome. And how long have you been working in this field?
So on and off, in 2013, I did yoga teacher training, and then some prenatal and postnatal. I was pregnant with my son when I started some of it in 2012. And then 2013, he was only a wee little pup, and I just felt this calling just to continue, even though I sorry, my dog is right next to me and I'm scared to take it apart. That's what I'm reaching for. But yeah, so I in 2013 when he was little, I just, even though he was so small, I felt the need to continue my training, and so took some prenatal and postnatal teacher training, and then continued with and finished my yoga teacher training, and then branched off. And I'd already had a foundation of other nutritional courses and healthy hormone courses and various workshops and things like that I had already taken over the years. And so just felt the need to kind of go back into it then. So I've just been continually immersing myself in the work ever since. And yeah, it's amazing. And I had a wonderful yoga teacher, I've had lots of them, but one in particular, Jana and Sasha, both of them actually, had said to us during teacher training that, you don't know what you don't know. And often people live in this world where we have blinders on, and we're so, brainwashed by society that these are the things we need to do. And instead of taking the blinders off and looking around us to see what actually our own calling is, we stay really within these, confines. And so it's really nice to feel connected to your journey and to just follow through with that and continually take courses. And as they said, your journey isn't over. There's no finish line. You just continue on, right?
Yeah. Just being a lifelong learner. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's something I'm really interested in myself as well. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing these interviews is, I've always been excited and passionate about health. And I think our stories are very similar. Like my nickname in school was Organic Boy, and people always made fun of the lunches that I brought to school. And I was very much like an outsider along with my, my other brothers and sisters. And, really didn't realize until, 5-6 years ago when I decided to come back to the farm that I lived a very different life than most people. And that I was incredibly lucky to have that. And it really has set me up for, the good health that I have today. And when I look around and see all the other kind of struggles and problems that people are facing today, it's really sad to see that. And so, one of the reasons why I'm trying to do these interviews is to help other folks maybe connect the dots and have some insights and take those blinders off so that their view can be widened out to what the other possibilities are that are out there. Because there's so many. You mentioned several of them today: the yoga, the energy work, the nutritional aspect, the emotional stuff. All that is really important. So, kind of along those lines, is like, how do you define optimal human health?
Oh, good question.
Or what are the 3 to 5 primary factors that influence optimal health?
Yeah, great questions. So for me, again, even though we're talking about nutrition, I think that it's never about nutrition, as silly as that sounds. Like it's bigger than that, right? So where did this come from? What's the root cause? What's led you to where you are right now, health-wise? And there's so many people who think that they, don't have issues with a particular thing, like, oh, I don't have issues with digestion and or whatever the case may be. But meanwhile, I watch them through the course of a conversation with them, and they show me all these signs of digestive issues, right? And so I think, you know, having a basic understanding that that's missing right now in the society is understanding what optimal health is really. And so for me, it's a place where there's minimal stress, and, you know, stress is going to, let me rephrase that. It's not even the fact that there should be minimal stress, it's having the tools to deal with stress. Because stress is going to present itself in different ways. I'm a mom, and so, you know, obviously there's going to be stresses in my life that look a lot different than someone who doesn't have kids. And the things that I think about or worry about or, you know, try to solve. But having a nice little tool chest where you can, you know, revert or resort to when you're feeling particularly stressed, those kinds of things. Stress, as we know, is one of the number one causes of disease in the world, right? And stress leads to inflammation. Inflammation leads to disease. And so, you know, eliminating inflammation just isn't as easy as eating a healthy diet or going to this workshop and they told me I should take these things. You know, it's bigger than that. So looking at, you know, your finances and how you keep your home, and, you know, how you conduct yourself in society as a person, how much self-respect do you have? You know, my husband and I were talking the other day about tacit approval, and that's the big word in the house right now. And he said to me, "You've never given tacit approval." And I said, "No, I don't." I said, "If people want pink bows and butterflies, they don't come to me."
That's right.
Because that's just the way it is. I have, again, coming from that counseling background, I think that's a disservice. I think it's a disservice, and it's a dishonor to me as a person, but it's also a dishonor to the other person that I'm talking to. I think that they deserve to know the truth, and that the truth, you know, really, as silly as it sounds, the truth will set you free. It really will, in the sense that being honest with yourself, right? So, you know, optimal health is about honesty with yourself, looking at your whole picture. It's, you know, I see people all the time like, oh, I need to lose 20 pounds. I'm going to go on this diet or that diet. You know, a lot of the issues really would start to dissipate, and you would start to see your body hold weight differently if you approach things differently. So if you looked at it from a psychological point of view, and you're looking at, okay, how did I get where I am? Look at my job. Do I love my job? Because if you're not passionate about your job, then there's step one, right? There's a job, there's a problem right there. And, you know, if you're not passionate about where you're living, who you're living with, your relationships, your friends, don't have tacit approval with your friends. If your friends are saying, like, you know, they have an opinion on something and you disagree, gracefully disagree. Tell them the truth. Be honest. And that honesty words have vibration and energy the same way that we do, in the same way our earth does, and our plants and our animals. And so if you're lying or you're giving tacit approval, you're actually putting negative energy out there. So, you know, those kinds of things is what I think of optimal health. And then, of course, one of the biggest things obviously is nutrition, what you're feeding your body with. But that comes back to, if you're in a place of self-acceptance and self-love, then you're not going to feed your body with garbage. Yeah. And people say, well, I can't afford, organic or this, that. That's okay. There's always options, but there's a difference between feeding your body what's good for it, which comes into the key role of kinesiology and understanding muscle testing and how to put the proper foods in your body. And just saying, okay, well, I had a salad yesterday. Well, that's good, but maybe your body doesn't need that salad. Maybe it needs high healthy fats, or maybe it needs good lean protein, right? So it's just understanding what's best for you, and that everybody in this world is different. And even if you have a twin, you're different. So understanding what is my journey, what is my passion, and then using those tools, to me, is the key to supreme health, right? It's about surrounding yourself with just this sense of energy that is, energizing, that it's not depleting your body, right? So one of the things that I love to use is tissue salts. salts. And I think I talked to you briefly about that. And so that's one of the things that's missing from our soil. So even for someone like you who is amazing and takes so much care and effort into nourishing your plants and animals, your soil is still depleted at such a nutrient dense level that it's shameful actually what our world has done to itself. And so tissue salts that are negatively ionically charged, exactly like our earth, have a way of reversing, assisting, and healing of the body, right? So it goes in at a cellular level and helps to heal. And so as opposed to eating the same thing in a food, sometimes we can't, for whatever reason, we can't assimilate the nutrients the way we need. Maybe we have an issue with our gut. Maybe we have particular autoimmune disease, or, so on and so forth. And so therefore our bodies don't extract the nutrients the way they need. And so having it on a compounded level in a very distinct thing, such as a tissue salt or a cell salt, some people call them, allows the body to start to heal on a cellular level, and then you're able to better assimilate the nutrients that you're eating, et cetera, et cetera. So those are my thoughts.
Interesting. Wow. I've never, I'm actually not familiar with tissue salts or cell salts. I've never heard the term before, or like we give our animals and we use lots of, salt is a big part of our diet, and healthy salt. But could you just explain kind of quickly what tissue salts are? And
definitely, and tissue salts aren't necessarily salt, like as you just said, like salt.
Okay.
It's salts in the sense of I don't have any close to me, otherwise I'd show you what they look like. But they originally in like the 1800s. Dr. Schulzer was one of the guys who originally discovered them, I guess, in the sense that what he noticed was similarities with people so if somebody had a particular autoimmune disease or illness, so on and so forth, that they lacked certain nutrients in the body, which makes sense, of course, right? Yeah. Because if your body, if you have a particular disease or illness, then your body's going to draw upon a particular nutrient and use more of it. So then the face is a way that shows in particular what's lacking in the body, the same way that we use iridology and we kind of pinpoint things that are happening. It's the same kind of like, sorry, just 1 second, my dog's barking. I'll be right back. There's benefits to living near a dog park, and then there's not benefits to living near a dog park.
Always
he's a little obnoxious, but he's cute. But anyway, so he discovered this, and he noticed that these trace minerals were missing, even in when a body starts to decompose and break down, even in the bones and those kinds of things. There was a noticeable similarities between certain people who had certain diseases or so on and so forth. And so he started thinking, well, how can I kind of test this? So he started working with patients and started adding particular nutrients together, compounding them, and then giving them to them in order to see how their body responded and see whether or not that helped fill gaps, so to speak. And it actually did. And so, like, for example, people who have silica deficiencies in the body, they'll show certain things on the face. There's lines down the side by the ears, and so on and so forth, right? Calcium fluoride, there's certain things like there's lines by the eyes, same with silica. Iron deficiencies, there's black. Of course, you see dark circles under the eyes. A lot of people know that one. Yeah. So malnutrition, there's typically a line. It's pretty deep right here. But there's, I'm giving you very minimal basics, but they're like a list of things that the body shows. And so it shows it, and it's actually extremely accurate. And I was blown away when I first started studying it. And then I took a facial analysis course with a lovely reflexologist in Chinese medicine. And so that goes even in a different direction in Chinese medicine and talks about different lines. And so just incorporating the knowledge that I had about facial analysis, plus learning under this amazing practitioner over the last little while, just being a part of his group. He's out in New Brunswick, actually, Tim Goyach. And so learning from him, and now being able to provide clients with these cell salts, using them myself, using them on my family and friends and people I know. And I can't believe the difference. And it's not one of those things where you have to take it for the rest of your life, or it's extremely expensive. So it's, you know, it's not some catchphrase or some, you know, MLM company, or, you know, like, not that there's anything wrong with that or anything like that, but it's not about that. It's just about muscle testing and finding out exactly what's getting to the root cause with the body, and then supplementing on that kind of nutrient dense level. Yeah.
That's so interesting. I mean, one of the things that pops up I've never heard of tissue salts before, or, I mean, I'm familiar with iridology and you know, had it makes sense to me that you'd be able to see signs in, you know, somebody's face. Like the Weston A. Price noticed that, you know, when people, children were born that were nutrient deficient, they had, like, you know, the side profile of their face, the middle third of their face was like sunken in, and I was aware of that. But the things that you're talking about there, it's almost like, you know, in the same way that I've studied a lot around like soil health, and I've studied under, you know, some of the world's best soil scientists, and a lot of the indicators that they talk about are like very similar. So it's like when the soils are deficient in certain minerals or nutrients, certain plants show up, or certain bugs show up, or you can see the color of the soil, the texture changes, and there's all these like subtle differences, but they're all clues that are leading you back to, like, they're symptoms of a larger root cause. And the ironic thing is, you know, much the same in agriculture as in human health, the predominant method is to focus on the symptoms and say, I don't want weeds, I don't want this plant growing here, I don't want bags under my eyes, so I'm going to buy, you know, Neutrogena, you know, X5000 and rub it under my eyes, and all these things. And when we're not going and looking at the deeper root cause. That's really interesting.
And it is, and it's interesting to me when I dove into it that even, like I said, having a foundation in originally in counseling, and that it's amazing to me, even utilizing those skills and seeing, you know, and I certainly hope everyone knows I'm not assessing all of you when I see you. You're like, are you assessing me right now? No, I'm not. I promise. It's all in good love. Like, it's all, if I ever notice anything about somebody, it's always just because I want to see them do better or be better, right? It's not definitely never from a judgmental place. I just find it fascinating. It's the psychology mind of myself and my background that I just like to see. And with people with particular mental illnesses, for example, things like bipolar, even schizophrenia, things like that have been shown that they're depleted in very specific minerals. Right?
Interesting.
So it's really interesting that I know that there's a couple places in the States right now. I'm trying to remember where, I can't remember, but it was a couple hospitals that they're utilizing not tissue salts, but they're utilizing minerals in order to see whether or not there's improvements in certain mental health.
Yeah.
It's nice to see that kind of coming around in that way.
Totally. Well, one of the things that I got really interested in 2 years ago, there's a fellow by the name of Dr. Joel Wallach out of the States. Okay. And he used to be a vet, and he's his, I mean, it's interesting. If you talk to anybody who raises livestock, it's just, you know, that if your animals don't have the right minerals, they're not going to get pregnant, they're not going to grow properly, and they're going to have all kinds of, you know, health and wellness issues. And so you supply them with mineral supplements, and you get nutrient density analysis for your animals, but we don't do that for humans. And so this doctor,
I'm just going to grab him because he's so distracted.
No worries.
It's hard to live on the dog park. I know. Come with mom. 1 second. Sorry to interrupt the interview.
No worries.
He's just gone for a little nap now. Poor guy. It's difficult. It's difficult. Sorry, continue what you're saying about Joel.
Yes, it's Dr. Joel Wallach, and he has this. Anyways, he did a bunch of research around the importance of minerals and enzymes in animal health, and saw that there's a lot of correlation for human health as well. And so he developed this. It's a pretty gimmicky pyramid type scheme product. It's called 90 for Life. And so I did a bunch of research into that, and it made sense to me. But when I looked at, there was, I believe it was 74 like essential trace minerals, and then the balance is made up in like amino acids and like certain proteins. And it's like so his logic is like, if you have these 90 essential nutrients in your diet, you can be have a happy, healthy life. And so he developed this pill that you just took that would give you all the things that you needed. Anyways, I kind of looked at it from a different perspective. Is like, how would we have normally gotten these minerals and enzymes from our diet? Because people didn't always have, pharmacies and things like that to get their stuff from. And of course, it's from like healthy soils, healthy animals, just, healthy environment. So one of the things that we do is we provide bentonite clay mineral supplements to our cattle, pigs, and chickens. And bentonite clay has all of the essential, essential trace minerals. Mm-hmm. There's like 70 plus trace minerals that are in bentonite clay, which bentonite is a type of clay that basically used to be old ocean beds. So like all the fertility, all the nutrients that fell down into those low-lying areas, or there's some types of bentonite are from volcanoes and things like that. They're just full of these very bioavailable nutrients and minerals. And there's all these other anecdotal stories about how, miraculous animal healings just from eating these minerals. But animals naturally, and humans also, would find out these places where these minerals were located, and they would go to them at great distance and detriment to their health to acquire them for parts of their diet. So I'm just curious. I'd love to, maybe after the conversation, I can get a bit more information around these tissue salts and see.
Sure.
I'd love to compare that to the bentonite clay that we're using, and maybe there's a way that we can do some trials and experiments to see because animals have a very deep understanding of what their bodies need, and all you need to do is take mineral away from cows for 2 days and then put it back and reintroduce it, and they go crazy for it. It's like they just know what they need, or you can put 2 different kinds of food in front of them, and one day they'll take one and one day they'll take the other. They're very in tune with what their bodies need. And so it's really easy to do experiment, because they basically do kinesiology for themselves. I'm sure of it. So
yeah, definitely they do. We ironically, that you're telling the story, we had our pup at our vet, who's a great friend and amazing person, and she uses Chinese medicine and kinesiology and techniques in order to best assess what's going on. And so anyway, she did a little demonstration for my son, and it was pretty awesome. And where she already knew which Chinese herbs she wanted to put him on, and she checked him, and and he picked it. And so she laid it was 4 different ones on the floor, and she said, "Okay, Bennett, which one?" And he went right to the one that she had originally already assessed and knocked it over and was licking it. And then we held up the other ones, and he would turn up his snout and like snarl his teeth and pull his head away. And Ryerson was just like, amazed, right? And so then she said, "You go ahead." And so he did it again, and sure enough. And even now when we pull it out of the cupboard, he licks the bottle, like his tail wags, like he wants it, and he knows exactly what's good for them. Same way that essential oils are the same. You have to be careful with giving essential oils or putting essential oils around animals. It's the same idea. They know And we, unfortunately, a lot of people think it's hogwash, or they, kibosh it all because there's no way that that works, or I've freaked out a lot of people by doing muscle testing, and they just can't believe it. Like, they think it's some kind of rig, or there's some kind of joke to it, but it's not. And once you start understanding the dynamics behind it, and that this is like, not some new fad, that this has been around for a really long time, and that you can use animals, then that's when you really start to find out the issues and get to the root problems, instead of always having to do blood tests. And blood tests aren't always accurate, right? And they don't always give us the answers that we need. And so sometimes we need to utilize other things, such as kinesiology and iridology and traditional Chinese medicine, and all of those wonderful practices. So
yeah, absolutely. Okay, that was a really interesting kind of tangent there. So coming back to the question of kind of your definition for like the factors that make up optimal human health is like being able to manage stress,
definitely,
kind of like an appropriate amount of stress, and when it gets too much, you have a process for managing that. Kind of honesty with yourself, your friends, and your family, right livelihood, nutrition, and then the one thing I also really got out of what you said is that it's a journey, it's a process. Like, there's this constant evolution. Like, what you need changes on a day-to-day basis, and I really, that really resonates with me, myself, and kind of my own definition of what optimal human health is. And kind of going back to the kinesiology and like testing things, like I still to this day, and I've started to notice this pattern, is when we were kids, my mom would always ask us what we wanted to eat, and it was like, hey, what do you guys want to have for supper tonight? And we would all of us kids would sit and look up into the left, kind of reflecting on, it's like asking our bodies what we wanted. And it was amazing how more often than not we would all say the same thing, or somebody would say, like, do you want to have chicken tonight and rice? And we're like, no, that isn't set. No, I don't know. I don't want chicken and rice. And then and eventually we'd all be like, yeah, let's have that. Let's have like a salad and some cheese. And then it was like, yeah, that sounds really good. And like, I still do it to this day. And now, as with a greater appreciation and understanding of just how intelligent, our bodies are, it's we know what we need, and we know what we don't need. It's just empowering ourselves and giving us those tools, as you were saying, to help make those decisions. And it's great because if we can have physiological indicators like the bags under our eyes, or the lines in our faces that we can look out for,
right.
It's like we have another, because like, oh, maybe I'll have ice cream tonight and I'll have ice cream tomorrow night. It's like, how do you can have some checks and balances that are a little bit more unbiased to some of these other things.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add to that too. We did go on a tangent, and I meant to add. I probably went on a tangent more than you, but I meant to add too is movement. Like,
Okay, yeah, movement.
part of that, and getting outside as much as possible. But besides just getting outside, taking your shoes off, right? So that whole energy connection. That's what I was trying to touch on, and then we got sidetracked. Is the energy of the earth is the same thing as the tissue salts we're talking about, or the food that we're growing, or those kinds of things. There's measurable energy in the earth, and we all and if we don't know that, then do some research, because you'll find lots of it, lots of information on it. So we are also our energy. And so whether we're having a good day, or maybe a crappy day, or whatever, things are happening for us, going outside and taking your shoes off has been shown and proven in numerous studies that instantly reduces inflammation in the body, and inflammation causes other things to happen, right? So just like propelling all this stuff to happen, including the energy and the thoughts and so on and so forth. So movement doesn't mean that I want everyone to go do hot yoga. It means take off your shoes and walk in your backyard and move. Get down on your hands and knees. Do some gardening. And when you're gardening, wear no shoes. Wear no legs, just some shorts, and connect with the earth that way. And move whatever feels good to you. Like, it's not up for me to tell you exactly what it is that you should do for exercise or movement. what's right for me is the same as food and so on and so forth is different for somebody else. And so for me, yoga, meditation, CrossFit, I love CrossFit. But that kind of stuff. And part of the whole CrossFit thing is, it's part of that, it's become this nation of people, but in fairness to them and in fairness to what they're doing, a lot of them are listening to what it is they feel like they need at the time. And so they're challenging themselves. They're trying to incorporate healthy energy, healthy thoughts, healthy diet, so they are doing a lot of good things, right? And so, again, who am I to say what they're doing is right or wrong? But movement would definitely be in my top 5 for sure, in some capacity, and connecting with here.
Wow. Those are 2 really good ones. I'll add those to the list. Okay. So another question and that I have is what are the most common problems, or what are the patterns that you have identified in terms of the problems or the symptoms, and also the root causes that your clients are seeking out your services for? What are the top 3?
Oh my goodness. Fertility was definitely one for quite a while. With people. It's not that it's kind of died off, but it's kind of lowered its status right now. I find that a lot of people are having digestive issues. That's definitely, and from digestive issues, that could be, I'm talking like gut health, I'm talking, minimal things as well as extreme things, right? So digestive issues that have led to autoimmune diseases, right? So digestive issues like IBS or celiac or Crohn's disease, those kinds of things are definitely high on the list for sure. And then we look at that, and for me, again, from a research kind of mind that I have, is I think, okay, like, where is this coming from? But in reality, it's been there all along. It's just that things don't just appear. Like, often people will say, oh, I've been healthy my whole life, Jen, healthy my whole life, and this just happened. Okay, well, I appreciate your input, but that's not the way the body works. It's not the way the world works. So let's go backtrack. And then when we backtrack, all of a sudden they're like, holy crap, Jen, you're right. When I was 12, I did have this, and and then we start to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. It's because, unfortunately, we as a society, majority of people, I should say, are trained to live busy, right? It's the key word, busy. I'm so busy.
Yeah.
And so when you're brought up like that, it amps up your internal organs. It amps up your system to the point that you're always in this kind of hyperactive, anxious state. And we never have a time where we can then come down. So that affects, it's like, you're talking this very intricate little pieces of the puzzle throughout your whole body. And so often when I see somebody for digestive issues, like, your question is very valid, and at the same time, it's difficult to answer in the sense that it's never just one thing. Like, that's what I was kind of touching on in the beginning, that they may come to me because they say, yeah, I'm having fertility issues, or I'm having digestive issues, or whatever, or I've been diagnosed with Crohn's disease, or whatever the case may be. But in the end, we 6 months later, we have actually all these other things that we've added in where we say, okay, really, that's not even a problem for you. It's actually these other 5 things that we need to kind of facilitate first, right?
Yeah.
And when we work on these things, then this tends to alleviate. And so it's in that sense that I'm answering your question. It's easy, but it's not easy to kind of give an answer to that. I feel like it's whole body health. I feel like people come to me with a particular symptom, like you said, and that's when I say, like, digestive, issues, for example, or fertility. But it doesn't really have anything to do with that. That's just a mere symptom of the reality of the body with that. So that's kind of, I see everybody, and I see, all different types of people and all different backgrounds. And I think that treating each person on an individual basis with kindness when they come to you, the fact that, they even showed up. That's my counseling side. I'm like, thanks for showing up. Like, that's awesome. It's rad, right? And then helping them discover what the root cause really is. And then using the tools such as, okay, well, these are the options we can do. We can look at hair analysis. We can look at iridology. We can look at, cell salts. We can do some muscle testing and see, where some issues are there, and then giving them a plan that's more of a life plan, so to speak. And then it's up to them whether or not they want to attack it and work each piece. And from the people that I've worked with, I've gotten great feedback in that they feel like their lives have changed as opposed to just their diet, because they're actually looking at the bigger picture.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, that's a great answer. And I definitely agree with you. It's, there's everything is connected to everything else. And it's a very holistic approach to achieving optimal human health. And I like your kind of process for helping people to like empower them with the tools and resources so that they can be their own doctor, which I think is so important, because there's so many ways you can skin this cat when it comes to achieving health and wellness, and you can go down so many tangents and like try to live somebody else's protocol or somebody else's diet or somebody else's thing, when in reality it needs to be unique for every individual person, and then it's constantly changing. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, the other my next question is kind of in relation to that, and this is just, I totally agree with you in that this is a holistic there's a holistic approach, and it's very variable. But that being said, in the same way that there are patterns in everything, and so like what are the top three when it comes to the nutritional aspect of optimal human health, which is one of the 5 kind of components that you laid out. What are the top 3 or 4 kind of nutrients or foods that are missing from our, like, the traditional North American diet that you see in your clients?
My goodness. Let me think about that one. It's your questions are amazing questions, and because of my intricate mind, it's hard for me to give a simple answer, and only because each person is so different.
Yeah.
I would say definitely, if I was to think about the last, say, 3 or 4 people that I have worked with, the things that I see missing on the nutrient level: magnesium, for sure. Definitely magnesium. Lots of inflammation I see in the skin and in the body. Definitely zinc is another. Lots of zinc. And I'm just thinking of one client in particular. Iron, for sure. Definitely ferrophos.
Interesting. Magnesium, zinc, and iron. Yeah. And then in terms of like the foods now, like, do you have any sense of like what are the 3 kinds of foods, or one of the kind of frameworks that I'm particularly fond of is the Weston A. Price's the 11 characteristics or the 11 principles of a traditional diet. Do you have any, like, basically what if when somebody comes to see you and they have symptoms that are relating to some kind of a food level thing, like what are the 3 most common things that you find yourself telling people to start incorporating back into their diet, or taking out?
Right. Yeah. Typically, I look at what we can eliminate first, just to see whether or not what's causing inflammation.
Yeah.
So we just, even just doing simple things like jotting down for a week or 2, what they're eating. And it's not about judging, it's just seeing how they're grouping foods, how much they're eating, how much carbs they're eating compared to proteins, what kinds of carbs they're eating, and are they eating healthy fats, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But definitely gluten and dairy, I see a lot of sensitivities to. And
Okay.
the thing that I want to caution with people is that people often say, oh, there's no such thing as gluten-free and da 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 da. But the thing I want to caution about this is that when we damage the body the same way that if we had a broken arm and you saw my broken arm, you would see that it's broken. Just because it's internal doesn't mean that it's not the same thing as the broken arm, right? And so it doesn't mean that eventually you can't start to incorporate, good dairy or good grains back into your diet. What it means is you need to give the body time to heal. So by eliminating the things that are causing inflammation for a period of time, and then working on the nutrients that are missing from the diet, then you're giving yourself a chance to recoup, because the body has an amazing ability to heal. On a cellular level, we watch it as if we have a cut on our hand, right? And it'll heal the cut, so it's the same thing that happens inside. And then we can use the tools like herbal magic medicine that we have around us, to heal whatever particular thing we're kind of trying to knit back together. And then you can start to reintroduce some of those things that you feel like you can't live without, or that are important to you, right? Having even on an occasional basis, and all of a sudden you don't have any symptoms, and you're like, wow, that's crazy. That's the first time I've eaten dairy and not been bloated or broken out in acne or whatever the case may be, right? And so yeah, that's kind of the way that I like to approach it. And then using things like muscle testing and teaching people that you can muscle test if you're not sure. If you're like, okay, I'm going to eliminate corn, soy, dairy, and gluten, just say, or grains, and then I'm going to, but I don't know if I can have this or not. Muscle test. Have some things in your toolbox so that then you're like, okay, actually I can have this today. Because what, again, like you touched on, what you can have one day may not be what you can have another day, right? It's your body is speaking to you all the time. It's energy. And so maybe you didn't, assimilate the nutrients you needed to yesterday. And so you really need lots of healthy fats today. Whereas the next day, maybe not so much, right?
Interesting. Yeah, and I really like that approach. So the top three nutrients that you see missing from people's diets are the magnesium, zinc, and iron. And then the three foods that you find actually telling people to get away from is the gluten, dairy, kind of corn and soy type stuff. Yeah.
If they're, sorry, I was just going to say, and if they are lacking, like, I just realized I didn't answer the second part of the question. If, for example, iron, like I love liver, adding those things in. Most people are like, no, but, getting from a good source, such as someone like yourself or someone, or someone, that they farm practices and so on and so forth, and then incorporating it however you can, and parts and organ meats and those kinds of things. They're so nutrient dense that, again, I think they're super to put in, but they're not solving the problem. So doing that in the meantime, eating those kinds of foods while you're trying to get to the root cause, and then you might not need as much of that as you get older or you get further along in your path of
Interesting. So, like in your opinion, then is diet more of like a maintenance type thing? Does diet play a maintenance role in optimal human health, or for you is it one of like the core pillars of optimal human health?
I definitely think a maintenance role for sure. Yep. I think that it plays a key part. It obviously, like, you need to source from people that you need to grow your own food. You need to decide what diet or lifestyle is right for you and your family. But just approaching it from that point of view is not optimal health, right?
No.
We know for a fact that even talk about this whole fasting thing that a lot of people do, which is super great for the body, you know, stopping eating at a particular time and then not eating the next day to a particular time. It allows the body to heal and to, you know, neutralize the things it needs to neutralize and assimilate the nutrients that it needs. Then when you do eat, it's better able to get from the food what it needs. So as opposed to, I see people constantly eating, but your body isn't able to break down the nutrients or take from the food what it needs if you're constantly putting it in a place of motion, right? It has no downtime, it has no recovery time. And unfortunately, this society, we have later bedtimes, we have fast food at every street corner, we have late night eating until 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning. We have more night shift workers than ever before. You know, you add up all of those things and people are not eating and cycling food the way that they used to. So if we treated food more as a tool in our toolbox, as opposed to the main thing, and we looked at the other areas that we talked about, like stress and movement and right energy and all of these things, then we would see that each one plays a key role.
Wow. Yeah, that's really interesting. I had not looked at it that way, but I have to say that makes a lot of sense. Really. Okay. There's one other question that kind of answers the next part of my. Well, I guess. We touched on this a bit earlier, but maybe just I'll get you to kind of summarize that. Like when it comes to like the lack of the minerals in our food, what are the key barriers to people accessing nutrient dense food? Is it that they're not available? Is it that, you know, we just don't have a testing process for it? Is it that people just don't know how to source stuff from you know, producers who are raising, you know, nutrient dense, you know, crops and animals? Or like what do you think are the key barriers for people to access those nutrient dense foods?
I think all of those things that you just said, for sure, without a doubt, they all play definitely key roles. And on top of it, I think too is people not giving tacit approval to governments and to even farmers who don't have good farming practices, right? That we don't want to use pesticides and herbicides and garbage on our foods and our crops, and we don't want anyone else to either. And so imagine if we even eliminated some of the, you know, negative farming practices that currently happen, even in regards to not even the animals. If you forget about the animal piece of it and you just concentrate only on vegetables and fruit, if we eliminated, you know, even, you know, 20, 25% or even 50% if we were really courageous, of some of the things that are happening, then the food that's in the grocery stores that majority of people access, because reality is that it's a small percentage on people, unfortunately, who access farmers markets, who, you know or find people like you who grow their own food, who source from good places, unfortunately. So that percentage is really low, and it's reversed, right? But the majority of people, you know, when you ask them where you get their food from, they say Superstore or Sobeys or wherever, right? And so, you know, if those people, if that's the lifestyle that they have, and we respect that that's their decisions to have that lifestyle, then how can you reach those people? And it's about speaking out. It's about education to those people so that then they start to question the farming practices of the food that they're eating, right?
Absolutely.
And that big places like Monsanto, who just got bought out by Bayer, by the way. They're gonna go under a new name, so they're not gone. Nobody forget about them. But yeah, so people like them who take over like all of these different agencies and food organizations and all this stuff, and people don't even know, and so they're eating all this stuff, and that really, you know, starts to break down the body and almost on a cellular level. If you think about if a child is born extremely healthy and has, you know, everything, you know, that they should, where it should be, and they're eating these foods yes, their body is able to extract certain nutrients from the food because they're in optimal health, so to speak, as a child, if you but their body at the same time is being damaged, right? And so all of a sudden they're a teenager and they have Crohn's disease, things like that. Like that shouldn't happen, right? And so I like all of the suggestions that you said, and I would just go like a step further in saying that education and educating people, whether it be in the schools, educating the kids. Like there's so many good people out there. I have a girlfriend who goes into schools and does different things for nutrition, and she's fabulous. And so people like that, that's the kind of people we need more of. And people like yourself who can just talk, give out pamphlets. And if you reach 1 in 10 people, that one person is going to reach 10 people, and that person, and so on and so forth. And that's the way that I try to live my life and try and educate those people around me. It's about empowerment. It's not about, I have this secret cure and I want to keep it all to myself and get $9.95 on my next thing in order to access it. Like that's not me. I don't do those things, and I never will. To me, I'm like, come make an appointment, come ask me questions, I'll tell you everything I know. Because I want people to learn and grow, because then they're going to change the world, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's really, that's our philosophy with everything too, is we're trying to grow healthier people through nutrient dense food, education and consulting, and community celebration. And, because I don't see the fact that there's 7 billion people on the planet as a problem. I see it as an incredible opportunity for all of us to, put our heads down and start doing the work and giving our gifts back to the world. But the thing that I always see is that, so many of our gifts are suppressed because we're dealing with these like symptoms all the time. And it's like, one of the sayings that I live by is you can't pour from an empty cup. And, so it's like, if we can heal the individual, if we can empower them to look after themselves, then their gifts can overflow, and it's just going to keep spiraling upwards, as opposed to this kind of scarcity mentality where, like you said, we're guarding all of our secrets, and I don't believe the universe works that way. And
no, and that's just me. Like every practitioner has their own thing. For me, it just doesn't. I trust my instincts, and it doesn't feel good to me. It doesn't feel good to have a website where I charge people money to access my stuff. I think, hey, I can make a meeting with me, or do what we're doing right now, or we can, or come in person or whatever, and we can discuss things and try and figure out what's right.
Absolutely. Awesome. And I know this could be another hour conversation just on its own, but you mentioned, and we are kind of coming up on our time here, so I want to respect yours and your time. But I would encourage folks to you mentioned Monsanto, and one of their kind of key contributions, if you will, to the world has been glyphosate or Roundup. And I encourage people to look into that. There's a lot of other things in the world as well that are contributing to all these different forms of stress. But as a farmer, and the amount of research that I've done into that, its role, it's a registered antibiotic. It's used as a chemical chelator. Before it was ever applied as a herbicide to kill weeds, it was used to clean pipes in industrial plants. And it actually binds up, interestingly enough, the 3 nutrients that you mentioned there, magnesium, zinc, and iron. It binds all of those nutrients in the soil and makes them unavailable to plants when you apply it to soil. And there's all these other things as well that are associated with it. And it's been linked to, the World Health Organization has labeled it as a carcinogen, and the list just goes on and on. And that it is one of the most widely used herbicides in North America. At one point it was the world, but a lot of other countries are starting to ban it. So, and a lot of our crops are treated with that at least once during their growth cycle. And it has a half-life of 25 years in the soil. It starts to break down. It's just, the list goes on. It's an incredibly detrimental chemical stressor in our environment, I believe. And yeah, just one other kind of piece of the puzzle to fit into your
totally. Absolutely. And I mean, on top of that, just quickly, I mean, you think about all these people are talking about these, the tick infestation, the, all these insects they've never seen, all that kind of stuff that's going on. Well, that has a lot to do with it because we're killing off all of the microbes and the insects that would typically, take care of and, fight off these guys. So, it's everything is everything, and love that saying, and everything is connected, and we're all connected, and so is everything that we do to each other and the earth. And so we need to think bigger. We need to think bigger outside of ourselves and not be so self-absorbed, and look at beyond, and we'll start to heal ourselves.
Interesting. Yeah. And that's also my philosophy too, is that, all of these, I see all these kind of problems in the world, like the fact that there are organizations like Monsanto that exist, the fact that there are, tacit approval is the status quo in our government and regulatory, I see all those kind of problems. They're just symptoms of a larger root cause, which is an imbalance in our, in ourselves. And so it's like, as above, so below, that, and all these things are connected. I love the analogies that are the same, like in the same way that our agriculture is a mirror image of our health, our healthcare system, and our healthcare system is a mirror image of our education system. It's like all the same patterns are emerging in all these things, and they're all directing back to, in my mind, it all starts with the individual, and how do we change ourselves and then grow as a community and affect it from the outwards, as opposed to trying to fight things from the outside in.
Yes.
Awesome.
We're all capable of more, and that's the biggest thing that I see lots of people with anxiety symptoms or depression symptoms, and again, not to dismiss real mental health issues, but a lot are related to that. The scarcity of the fact that they're missing particular nutrients in their body.
Yeah.
And there's studies on that. And so, we need to rise up as individuals and look at the bigger picture. We need to rise up as individuals and help each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Help, if you see somebody struggling, don't give tacit approval, offer a suggestion. If it doesn't work for them, it doesn't work for them, right? But education is so powerful, and it's empowering to people. And so I think that as a movement, people need to do that.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Jenn, thanks so much for your time. It's been just amazing to interview. I have lots of other questions that I didn't even answer, and lots more that came up as a result of this. So maybe we'll have to get you back on for another one. But just in closing, how can people find out more about your work? You've mentioned a lot of resources and stuff like that. I'll get you to I'll do a follow-up email and see if you can compile a list of some of the resources that you mentioned. But do you have a website? How can people reach out and connect with you in the incredible work that you're doing?
Sure. So I just actually took down my website.
Okay.
It's getting redone.
Perfect.
Yeah, it was focused a lot on yoga, and there wasn't a lot of movement for the wellness pieces of it. So for now, I've taken it down so that we can do and say exactly what it is that needs to be said.
Okay.
But people can reach me on Facebook under Soul Monkey Wellness. They can search it's a private group. So if you just search Soul Monkey Wellness, I can add you that way. Or you can just email me at soulmonkeywellness@gmail.com.
Perfect.
Yeah, and we can contact each other that way. Or you can even reach me by phone as well. And I think I have my phone number listed on
Facebook. Yes, I believe. Yeah, your email and your phone number is on Facebook as well. So we'll just throw the Facebook page in the show notes there, and when you get your new website up, I'll update the description there on the video.
Awesome.
So thank you again so much. Do you have any final words of wisdom or advice for folks on the path to optimal health and wellness?
My goodness.
Or what's one of your favorite quotes that you have?
my favorite quotes. We've said a lot of them throughout. Everything is everything. Yeah. For me, it's just about connecting back with the earth, and connecting. As soon as you connect with the earth on some level, you'll connect with yourself, and so you'll start to find what your journey is, and how connected we are to the trees and the flowers and the grass and the seeds and all that fun stuff. And when you start to connect on that level, it's very emotionally attached to spirit. And when we connect, attached to that spirit, then we can start to heal ourselves, and that's emotionally and physically. So that's what I'm about.
Awesome. Thanks again for your time, Jen. It's a pleasure to chat with you. And yeah, we'll be in touch.
Sounds good.